Can we also talk about Anne's drawing?
Their little scraggly hair.
What do these numbers stand for?
That's the number of times I've seen them.
She sees the mother and father twice. And I was like, how many times has she seen Victor? And it says 4 times. I was like, oh, 4 times, not that many times. And then it comes to the scraggly haired lady with a giant 14. It's like, holy shit, like what's going on?
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is that?
You really haven't mentioned that at all.
Can you elaborate, please?
Hi, I'm Allison.
Hi, I'm Joe, and this is Queer Cinema Catchup, the podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens. And today is a very special episode because we have a Spooky Tuesday.
Hey, Monica, take it away.
Hi, I'm Monica. There are also 2 other people in Spooky Tuesday. There's Sydney.
Hello.
And there's Chelsea.
Hey.
Now you know what our voices sound like. And we are a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror movies, fan cast Matthew Lillard. And we also ask the age-old question, how could this movie be gayer?
Well, Spooky Tuesday, it's so great to have you on today because we are talking about the movie The Others.
And it is Halloween.
Oh, yes. Happy Halloween, everyone.
It's Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
I can't believe we almost didn't mention that it's Halloween right now.
Should I be wearing a costume? Okay, I'm ready.
Should we also just do a quick little plot summary?
Oh, yeah. Remind me.
The Others is a 2001 gothic supernatural psychological horror film written, directed, and scored by Alejandro Amenábar, starring Nicole Kidman, Fionnula Flanagan,
Fionnula.
Christopher Eccleston, Elaine Cassidy, Eric Sykes, Mann, and James Bentley. Set in 1945 in Jersey, it focused on a woman and her 2 young photosensitive children who experience supernatural phenomena in their large manor after the arrival of new servants. Geographically, I don't really know what Jersey is.
I looked it up. It's its own country, but it had ties to the British Empire at one point. But it's like down by France almost.
That makes a lot of sense.
Is it someone's first time seeing The Others?
I think it was
Chelsea.
all my first time.
Yeah, Sydney.
This movie.
Okay. We won't speak for her then.
I'm excited to hear someone's perspective who had never seen it before.
Positive perspective.
Good.
I'll start off with that.
Allison and I had seen it together like a year ago.
For the first time?
No, I saw it back in like 2003.
Oh.
2001 is when it came out.
You're almost on time.
Yeah, almost on time. Yeah. The first time I watched this movie, I watched it at a friend's house up the street from me. And I watched it. I was terrified. And I went to bed that night at my own house. And then my dad the next day, he asked me, he's like, how was The Others? Were you very scared? I was like, oh, I was trying to play it off. I was like, no, I wasn't that scared.
Nah, Dad, it was cool.
It's actually really chill.
And he's like, oh, really? I noticed you had all your bedroom lights on that night and you never sleep with all your lights on. So I think you're a little more scared than you're letting on.
Like, we are just trying something new, actually.
Actually, in the movie, they had to have the curtains closed, so it was really dark the whole time. They embraced the light at the end, and I thought that's a good philosophy.
Yeah, so it kind of like seeped into my like subconscious and like really affected me. And then Sydney, how about you?
So I saw it when I was young, probably like 2005. It was like a sleepover movie. I knew the twist. I knew all of the stuff. And I just love anything with Nicole Kidman in it.
Yeah.
Especially that time period, like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, she was like so fresh off Moulin Rouge taking this
Yes.
role. I'm a big IMDb trivia reader, and IMDb trivia said like she was so hesitant to take this role because she's just off like the fun, brash, colorful Moulin Rouge. And it's like, this was such a dark, emotional place she had to go to.
Have you seen the end of Moulin Rouge? That shit's dramatic.
Well, Monica and Chelsea, for watching it for the first time, going into it, did you know things about it? Were things spoiled for you?
I had been off the grid with this one. I knew about it because people have been talking about it for years. And then it was completely offline. You could not find this movie up until, I think, recently. Did you watch it last year on streaming?
We did. Yes.
I bought this on DVD like a few months ago. And I was like, I'll fix my DVD player. I'm going to let you know right now. I rented it. I didn't fix my DVD player. And I also watched this morning. I'm jet lagged right now, so I woke up at 4 a.m. And so I watched this movie at 5 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Yesterday morning, when I woke up at 4 a.m. as well, I watched Terrifier at 5 a.m. Horrible movie to watch at 5 a.m. Want to know what a good movie is for 5 a.m.? The Others. It slapped at 5 a.m.
This seems like a good 5 a.m.
It really has
early
5 a.m.
morning
energy, I think.
Yeah.
That was my first take. Chelsea.
I did watch it last night. I was really trying to be like, it's late at night. It's dark out. It's scary times. I'm going to put it on and I'm not going to take any notes. I'm just going to watch it and experience it. And I was so impatient watching it. I was like, tell me if I'm right. Let's go. What's the answer? My second rewatch through today was a much calmer, more observant viewing.
So I had this professor who used The Others as an example to describe the difference between a horror film and a ghost story. For the horror film, you could say something like Smile or The Ring. And the idea is you build up all this like tension and bad feeling. And at the end of the film, they kind of give you a little bit of relief. And in a horror film, they then immediately say, oh, just kidding. The bad thing is still out there. So there is no relief. There's no catharsis. And then in a ghost story at the end, they let you feel okay in the last few minutes, which in The Others, you can kind of see how that happens.
I kind of see how that happens in The Other.
I still felt really bad, actually. I would actually disagree with you. At the end, I was like, I'm too undead. I did call the twist earlier in the film.
When did you feel like you knew?
I mean, the kids were talking about something happening a lot.
It did happen or it didn't happen. Yeah.
And then for sure, when she was like, I'm going out to find the priest. And they were like, okay, bitch. And I was like, okay.
I remember like watching this as a kid and feeling sick to my stomach, realizing that they were dead the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like the rug was pulled from my feet because the Irish lady,
Mrs. Mills.
they just like saw her as trustworthy. And the fact that she was like dead too, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe anything now.
He's dead.
I had, I think, a couple different guesses of like what the deal was because this movie came out in 2001 and I watched it for the first time in 2024. Mm-hmm. I've watched so many things borrowing from this movie that I was like, I'm getting big Hill House energy. I'm getting big Blind Manor energy. Like there are so many things that I was like, these are my cultural touch points. Mm-hmm. I was really onto their game, but actually they were doing it way earlier.
Yeah.
And it's just so well done too, even if you're guessing it. And we do podcasts, you know, not maybe for a living, but for a large part of our time.
That's maybe an exaggeration a little bit, yeah.
We're good at guessing. But that doesn't mean that it's not a fun ride regardless. And also, Absolutely. It made me deeply emotional. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they do a really good job setting up the twist, though.
They do.
It's pretty deftly handled. Even though we've already seen The Sixth Sense, so we're prepared for these types of things.
Well, the thing about The Sixth Sense that's so interesting is like he's walking around amidst everybody. And so it's like when you watch it closely, you see what and who is he actually interacting with. Whereas in this movie, the only people you can actually see, other than like little glimpses and shadows, are the people who are living in the same realm as them.
Yeah.
That's why it's like so surprising because it wasn't even on your mind to like question it. No. Whereas I feel like The Others, it's all being like, what's going on? Like what's happening? Yeah. And that's kind of like Chelsea, why when you're watching, you're like, just give me the answer. Come on.
I literally just said that they did a deft job of setting up the twist or whatever. They did a great job, but also they're
deftly.
Bertha Mills or whatever. She's literally like, guess what? There's a twist in this movie, by the way. Like the whole time.
With her spooky Irish energy.
I'm Bertha Mills, ma'am. And this is Edmund Tuttle.
Pleased to meet you, ma'am.
And this young lady is called Lydia.
Have you had much experience in service?
Oh, don't let that angel face fool you, ma'am. She's older than she looks.
What's the matter? Has the cat got your tongue?
She can't talk, ma'am. The poor little mite's a mute.
Throughout the movie, people will like introduce ideas, they'll say things, but then they'll like let it linger, like they won't finish their sentences. Yeah. Even at the very beginning of the movie, all the servants show up. Grace is a little confused, and then she's like, oh, you must be here for the...
Yeah, she puts the letter in the post to have the advertisement in the paper.
But they don't ever specify.
Right.
And then later on, Grace goes on being like, well, it doesn't make any sense because the ad wouldn't have gone out in time for you to even see it.
The ad's still here in my mailbox, actually.
Yeah. She was like, hey, 3 people that are here, come in to my house and live here. Yeah. I think you should look after my children. That's how much she needs help. That's how lonely she is.
Do you need to see my references? No.
There's no question.
I need you to make me a cup of tea right now.
No questions at all.
Here's the thing. If somebody just showed up and they were like, I want to clean your house and like take care of your yard.
Come on in.
They didn't say I want to clean your house and take care of your yard. She said, so you're here to clean the house? And they went, I guess. You can live here for free if you clean.
That would also work for me too.
But you do have to sleep in the shed.
You do have to sleep in this shed outside. Yeah.
I'm willing.
I want to see a movie from the perspective of the servants too, because like, what was their intention? Were they planning to show up at this house for closure?
I think they're always there. And that now that Nicole and her children are dead, they're like, oh shoot, we have to go intermingle with these new ghosts.
Yeah. Nicole Kidman and children died. So they gave them like a week just to get comfortable with this idea. And then we're going to show up and we'll guide you guys through what being ghosts is like now. But she just launches in immediately being like, I'm actually still alive and you guys are alive too. And you've come to work for me. And they're just like, oh, this should be handled delicately, perhaps. Because when Lydia found out she was dead, she went mute.
Mm-hmm.
That fucking sucks that Lydia had that reaction. Because it like later on in the film when the kids like realize that they're dead, they're like, wow, mommy, this is so fun. And Lydia was like, and I'll never speak again for eternity. That sucks.
Maybe she will one day.
Sequel, Lydia Speaks.
That's part of the thing about Mrs. Mills that's interesting, though, is I really think she's trying to tell us what the deal is very early on. But Grace, Nicole Kidman's character, keeps being like, no, say no more. I don't want to hear anything else. I just want you to go do your job in the other room.
She's like, don't fucking talk to me unless it's about Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, or limbo and purgatory.
Which is so interesting. I wonder if that's relevant to anything.
The Roman governor tried to make them change their minds afterwards.
To make them change their minds, full stop. Afterwards.
He ordered them to be beaten, but Justice and Pastor, far from being afraid, rejoiced and showed themselves willing to die for Christ. When he saw this, the Roman governor was filled with rage and ordered their heads to be cut off.
What do you find so amusing?
Those children were really stupid.
Why?
Because they said they only believed in Jesus and then they got killed for it.
And what would you have done, deny Christ?
Inside, I would have believed in him, but I wouldn't have told the Romans that.
Is that what you think too, Nicholas? I see. So you both would have lied to the point of denying Christ. Oh, you'd have saved your heads being chopped off by the Romans, that's true. But what would have happened afterwards? Where would you have gone?
Oh.
Where, Nicholas?
Limbo, where children go.
At the center of the earth, where it's very, very hot. That's where children go who tell lies, but they don't just go there for a few days. No, they're damned forever.
Grace, she's presented with such strong values. When you die, your behavior like affects where you go.
You can't even lie to save your own life about believing in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like you need to die on the cross with him.
Yeah.
She's like, guess what? The children, you know where the children go? To hell.
Is that Christian doctrine? I feel like my levels of hell knowledge comes from Dante's Inferno, not from the Bible.
Don't ask me. I read the Spark Notes on the Bible.
Did you read the Spark Notes in preparation of this episode?
In my English class in high school, we did the Bible and I didn't want to read it. And so I read the Spark Notes.
They're doing Catholicism specifically in this movie too, I think.
I think so.
All I know is children have to be baptized. Otherwise, they'll like go to purgatory unless they're baptized and then they can go to heaven.
And I think there was I can't believe I know this, but I think there was a doctrinal change where, yes, that was true. Children went to purgatory. And then the Pope was like, you know what? Actually, that doesn't happen to kids.
The Pope said, that's not nice. We're not going to do that anymore.
I love the aesthetics of Catholicism, but all the other stuff is kind of like, what?
I was just in Siena. And I was like, okay, like cool, the art's cool, whatever. Then I found the room with all the fucking skulls and bones in ornate golden gilded boxes. Hell yeah.
Yeah, Catholicism aesthetic is cool as hell.
You all notice what I'm doing? In this house, no door must be opened without the previous one being closed first. It is vital that you remember this. It's not as easy as it may seem. There are 15 different keys for all of the 50 doors, depending on which area of the house you're in at the time.
Lock all the doors as you come in. They really emphasized that and then didn't follow through on that being a rule in this movie.
You two could start closing the curtains. All of them.
I feel like it would have been interesting if one of the kids was kind of pushing against the rules and discovered that they no longer had the allergy.
Right. But Grace is the one that's like, wait for me outside. And she's like, you know that I can't.
I love the daughter.
I love this son. You sent an email of talking points and you're like, Anne Slays, yes. And I was like, what about Nicholas?
They're so sweet. I love both of those kids. And I love that, like, they're the foil to the other. Like, Nicholas is like, mommy is perfect. Shut the fuck up, Anne. And Anne is like, mommy's a bitch. She killed us. Don't you forget it. When the little kids are in the room with the curtains and Victor is, like, opening the curtains and you see him in the corner. Oh, my God.
Nicholas, tell him to leave the gun alone. You won't listen to me. Stop it. Get off my bed, both of you. This is our bed. No, it's mine. Anne, please stop putting on that voice. Don't be stupid. Can't you say it's not me? Victor, touch his cheek, though he knows you're real.
Moments of horror are so effective because they're not your traditional scares. Even when the scare happens and you get that release, you're never quite satisfied. You know, you never quite get an answer. In that curtain scene, the young girl is saying that Victor's in the room and he keeps opening the curtains and they're supposed to stay shut. Her brother, he refuses to look.
Stop doing that voice.
And then she calls him cowardly custard over and over again. Now we're like in the perspective of, what's the boy's name?
Nicholas.
That's
my bitch.
We're watching Nicholas and we're on his face in his perspective and we can hear his sister like whispering. And then we hear another voice, but because it's a whisper, it kind of sounds like it's also his sister whispering also. So you like never truly know what's going on. And yes, like in the end, Victor is real. It's another kid that was like talking in the room, but they're always keeping us in the shadows, like the audience. We never quite know like what's real and what's not real.
Poor Victor.
Poor Victor.
Victor's like, these bitches won't let me have any light in my bedroom. No natural light in bedroom. Circadian rhythm is fuck.
And another really effective scene too is like Grace hears a piano playing in the distance. The daughter plants the seed pretty early on. She says like, mommy went mad. So you never know if it's all in Grace's head. If she's seeing things, you don't really know what's going on. So this piano thing, is it something that's just like happening in her head or is it happening for real?
Yeah.
So she goes in the room. She sees no one in there. The door creaks shut. She has a key for everything. She closes the piano, locks the piano, and then she goes to the door and is testing the door and she can see that the door like naturally closes on its own. And then all of a sudden it abruptly slams in her face and she like falls backwards. And then the door like rattles and gets locked. I feel like that was a moment where I was like on first watch, I was like, oh my God, there really is someone else in this house.
IMDb trivia said when she first gets the gun, there is a moment of like,
my professor, this is my horror class. Whatever.
Yeah.
We're talking about horror.
Bring in your academia, girl.
He showed us that scene. She picks up the gun. I don't know gun language. Cocks the gun.
Yeah.
She like looks down at it and like has this strange face on, and then she just kind of brushes it off. Like,
I've been here before.
Mm-hmm. I think for this movie too, like we talk about like the difference between like a horror movie, the difference between a ghost story. And I'd say this is, I mean, it's like a period movie. I feel like it's almost like Rebecca or something of that time.
Yeah, totally like Rebecca.
Yeah, because it's in the 40s, but they're even like removing it further from the 40s even by being like, we don't have radio, we don't have electricity, we don't have anything that would like shock us dead people into being engaged with any kind of current events, so that they are not aware of like time passing around them. But it really is like bringing you back to an era before any of those things, because she's like, yeah, the Germans kept shutting off our electricity, so like we don't even bother anymore. Right. We just do lantern all around the house.
I told Allison we're roommates. I requested that we only go by lantern throughout the rest of our time living together.
Honestly, it's nobody likes big overhead light anyways.
I did see an article. This is so silly. about how like millennials don't like harsh lighting, and that's like of our generation.
The bane of my existence in this podcast is the fact that I have to have overhead lighting on.
Us too. We have the lights blasting in our face right now.
Awful.
I want to be a photosensitive child.
That's a horrible disease. Also,
It is,
to
yes.
have.
That was one of my first hints, though, that something wonky was going on. And this was not actually the movie's intention at all. But I read a fan fiction that was very clearly inspired by Crimson Peak in some ways. But there is a character in there in an isolated home with fog all around who's photosensitive. And then they're a vampire. And so I was like, these kids might be vampires, maybe. But this could just be a cover for what's really going on. So, like, that was one of the ways I, like, dialed in early on to be like, I'm on to you. I'm paying attention.
Chelsea, did you just say Crimson Peak by accident?
No, I said it on purpose.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It was a Crimson Peak.
No, it wasn't a I mean, we don't have to talk about what it was. But
Crimson Peak inspired.
it was a fan fiction for a different piece of media that was like a Crimson Peak alternate universe sort of thing.
You were like, it was like Crimson Peak, and then they're vampires. And I was like, they're not vampires in Crimson Peak. So what the fuck are you talking about?
There's a lot going on in this fan fiction.
I only saw that movie once. I need to watch it again, but I just have this image of Jessica Chastain
and her like white shimmies.
I forgot she was in that movie. I just remember the girl from the Alice in Wonderland.
Mia Wasikowska.
I think we should watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
And then I'll send you the fan fiction and you guys will.
No, but I think that's one of the reasons why I love this movie so much, because like I love Crimson Peak so much. And this has so much in common, like the setting, the tone, the like haunting nature of it. Like for me, Crimson Peak was like a very emotional watch for me and like got under my skin. And I was thinking about it for days afterwards.
The notes of grief, isolation, mistrust.
It's like gutting. I love an emotional horror movie. For me, this is a horror movie because of the themes of death. As someone who hates the idea of mortality, like for them to like be like, I've been dead the whole time, that is the worst possible scenario. That's so scary to me.
I hope to come back as a ghost. Like, I
sounds fun.
Want to haunt.
You would be really good at it.
Yes. Like, I want to haunt a location, haunt people. Like, I want to be mobile. And
you
so
should.
I'm like, this seems ideal.
It seems better than they had it before.
Like, you get a big, beautiful house. You have people cleaning up your fake ghost house. You don't even have to do that in death.
Charles. Grace.
But where have you been all this time?
Out there. Looking for my home.
You're so different. So different.
Sometimes I bleed.
Wait, okay, can we talk about Christopher Eccleston? Can we talk about the dad? Because I thought that was a really interesting part of this movie. And I was also really excited to see Christopher Eccleston as a big Doctor Who fan.
Is Doctor Who the Doctor Who fan fiction we've all been waiting for?
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of Doctor Who on AO3. You should check it out. No, but I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, and I love Christopher Eccleston. And it's so great to see him sexy, because not that sexy in Doctor Who. They didn't like give him a cool outfit in Doctor Who. Unfortunately, bad haircut in Doctor Who. But in this,
yes, he had so much hair in this.
He did have nice hair.
sexy. Haunted, though. Very haunted.
Haunted.
Well, he bleeds sometimes.
Yeah, that line. Sometimes
Whoa.
I bleed.
Sometimes I bleed.
Whoa.
Honestly, that was like probably one of the cheesiest moments of the movie for me. He was just like, sometimes I bleed. I'm like, okay, guy, what's happening here?
Well, but also he's having this experience, I think, where it's like he's kind of disconnected from the world.
Yeah, he's not tethered to the house.
He has been dead for a long time and presumably wandering around the ether trying to get home so he can get like one last glimpse of his family before he has to go back to the front lines in whatever metaphorical or physical capacity that means, but he just got home, wandered in the fog, and found his wife, and it turns out
they're fucking dead.
Does he have some awareness of the fact that, that he came home and they're dead too, and that's why he's able to see them and interact with them?
No, I think he knows.
I think he knows too.
I'm talking about what happened that day.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Tell me it's not true. Tell me what happened.
I don't know what came over me that day. The servants had left during the night. You must forgive me, Charles.
Not me. The children.
They know that I love them. They know I'd never hurt them. I'd die first.
When she has that scene with the husband later, after Anne was inconsolable and after Nicole Kidman's character was like, stop breathing like that! Don't breathe!
Yeah, that's a little on the nose as well.
Mrs. Mills puts her in with the husband. She's like, she only wants to talk to the husband. And then later when Grace goes to talk to him, he's like, Anne told me everything about that day. And for her, when she's thinking about that day, it seems to be the day after because she's like completely suppressed the day of mention. And so for her, it's like the next day when everybody was gone and she was by herself with the kids is that day for her. But he's saying like, she told me everything that happened. I'm not talking about the ghosts, which is to say the intruders in the house. I'm talking about what happened. And she says, like, I would never hurt them. They know I love them. I'd die first before I hurt them, which is like...
No, you died second.
That's exactly what I wrote in my notes.
Yeah.
That's when he realizes, like, what happened, as opposed to just something happened. Again, he was away at war, and the Germans were occupying the island. He came home to get one last glimpse of them, and it turns out they're all dead, so...
They can all hang out together.
No, he doesn't want that.
He's not tied to this place.
You can't say.
Not with that attitude.
Did he even try?
Classic man. Doesn't want to be around his family.
One thing I liked about the dad coming back, they don't like give you a lot of backstory, but they give you a little bit of details that makes you feel even sadder. Everyone surrendered and he couldn't live with that, so he left his family to go to war, which is a noble thing to do, but her perspective is, you should have stayed with us.
Yeah.
He didn't feel that way. He had to get out there. Yeah, I feel like it wasn't like heavy-handed or focused on too much, but just like a little accent of more misery.
If you want to bring your own narrative to this movie, you could also imagine that he might have had a difficult time at home with the curtains closed all the time in isolation. You can imagine he was like looking for a way out also, and this was a convenient excuse to be like, see, I'm going for larger purposes, and it's actually a moral choice that I'm making rather than I'm willingly abandoning my family because it's hard to be here with them.
Totally.
I'm going to go ahead and read that into my next viewing of the film.
Can we also talk about Anne's drawing?
Their little scraggly hair.
Little stick figures.
When the mom starts to believe there are intruders in the house, she feels comfortable enough to be like, look, Mom, I've drawn them.
You kind of get like a wide shot of the sheet of paper, so you like see all the figures, but you can't really make out who they are. She sees the mother and father twice, and I was like, how many times has she seen Victor? And it says 4 times. I was like, oh, 4 times, not that many times. And then it comes to the scraggly haired lady with a giant 14. It's like, holy shit, like what's going on?
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is that?
Can you elaborate, please?
You really haven't mentioned that at all, so I'm really curious to see why you've been keeping it to yourself.
The scariest part for me is when she lets her daughter wear her communion dress longer and then goes back in and she's the old lady.
What's the matter?
Where is my daughter? What have you done with my daughter?
Are you mad? I am your daughter.
You're not my daughter! No! You're not my daughter! No! No! No!
Mom, I heard shouts. She wants to kill me. She won't stop until she kills us. She won't stop. She won't stop until she kills us.
Come with me.
You're wicked. You're wicked, wicked.
I remember the marketing of this movie before it came out, and the trailers heavily featured that scene with the old lady. I mean, it's like visually very effective, like Grace like first noticing like the hand looks strange and then you can't quite make out the person's face through the veil.
The fog, the veil.
Metaphorical.
And she's screaming, "You're not my daughter."
Yeah. This scene happens after Anne had shown her the drawing of the scraggly haired lady. So I feel like that kind of like instills like a fear of like, who is this lady?
The old lady in this home.
Who she's seen 14 times.
From me.
I'd be curious to hear everyone's like interpretation now that we know that it was actually Anne the whole time. Like, what's happened? Like, is that an older version of herself? Like, is it the seance woman like embodying her?
So in the scene with the reveal, when they open up the door and the seance is happening, which was such a slave reveal, by the way. I was like, what the fuck are they doing? And I'm like, oh my God, she's a blind seer. She's like, and even possessed you or something like that. So that's what that was. We were seeing the other
They like
side.
swapped, sort of. They're simultaneously one, both in the human realm where the witch medium lives and in this ghost realm where Anne is interacting with her mother.
They melded.
I mean, this example right here just like goes to show how much more powerful this movie is too, that there seems to be like explanations for all these events that happen.
Well, I mean, that's what's so funny about the piano room scene when you are watching it for a second time at least, because Nicole Kidman is being like, somebody opened the door, but like in the real human realm, someone is like, they keep locking my piano and like, they're the ones jiggling the door. These bitches keep closing the curtains everywhere. Like, what is going on?
That would be infuriating to have a ghost that just kept closing your curtain.
That must be so weird. And also, I thought it was really effective when like Nicole Kidman's character like takes the papers during the seance that the lady had been writing on and rips them up. And then we see the live human's perspective. That's what they've been seeing this whole time. That's what
No wonder they ripped all the curtains down.
For me, all the times that I've watched it, when it leads into that seance scene of like Grace like discovering like what's really going on, I just feel like this movie is like so like slow moving. It kind of like brings you into everything and all the suspense is like really drawn out. But I feel like the seance, like you get like shoved in to that scene. It always feels like really overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, like the seance is happening. Like Nicole Kidman, they're all the ghosts. It's the other way around. Like it all just is so abrupt and like effectively jarring in a way. It's just like there's like so much information to like absorb, and it just keeps like escalating.
Yeah. And I think that it's cool that the kind of button to that scene is the lady from Game of Thrones,
Michelle Fairley.
She's a mom who goes, enough of this. We're leaving.
They've been terrorizing Victor for literally weeks, and we're not doing this anymore.
And her husband listens to her.
Well, especially because he is having his own paranormal. He's the pianist. He's the one playing the piano that keeps getting locked on him, and he's the one presumably opening the door and shutting it in her face in that one scene because he's like, "What the fuck is like?" He's dealing with it head on, and he, I guess, is also just similar to Nicole Kidman's character, where he's just going, actually, that didn't happen. Actually, that's not convenient for me to acknowledge, and I'm not prepared to deal with it yet at this time. So I'm just going into that happen. But yeah, I mean, no, I totally appreciate your perspective about how you feel shoved into that scene, and I think it's so interesting because obviously Anne, to some degree, has like an awareness of these intruders and like who they are in some capacity. She doesn't know the full story. But they, I think, are similarly shoved into it because the kids were going outside and they found the gravestones and they realized these people have been dead the whole time. So now they've just been directly confronted with the fact, like, there's not just Victor who may or may not be a ghost. These three people that we've been directly interacting with in a very real way are dead and have been dead this whole time. And we're going inside and now they're saying, we're dead. Something happened to us. Our mom did something to us. We knew she did something. Like, they're so forcefully brought into the reality in that moment by having this big shock reveal that they're now like open to confronting more of what the reality is. And by virtue of like them having to confront it, Nicole Kidman is being like shoved into that too, because now they're engaging with it in a way that she can't immediately write off or go, no, they're all just like jumping in and everybody is suddenly acknowledging it and able to. That's what they say earlier when they say like, oh, she'll see them when she's ready to see them. They're talking about the intruders, the human people in the human realm. She'll start to see more of them when she's prepared to accept that she's not in that realm anymore, but she's being pushed to confront the reality of her actions enough that now it's more accessible to her.
That's why this, I feel, is a really successful ghost story, because it's like Grace's character goes on a journey. I mean, the movie shapes it in a way where it seems like she like wants to protect her kids, but really it's like
She's protecting herself.
she's protecting herself, just acknowledging those actions. And then like when she is able to acknowledge that, then she's like actually able to go forward and be like the mother to the children that she's always wanted to. That was like always what she wanted in the end.
Yeah.
Which is why it's like such, not only effective, just like in like the suspense throughout the movie too, but there's this really like emotional core to the movie that is like so strong, which I think makes it powerful for like a rewatch.
Well, it's interesting because so much of what she's doing early on in the movie is maintaining her authority over everybody else.
Totally.
So that she can maintain some sense of control over her surroundings. And then she gets to the end where she's like been forced to confront the truth and accept it. And she's like, I'm not any wiser than you guys are. I don't have any answers that you guys don't have on your own. Like anything you ask me, I'm guessing same as you, as opposed to before. She was like, don't feel afraid. If you hold your rosary and say our fathers, there's no reason to be afraid. Like you don't ever have to question anything. And again, you can kind of see why she is there at that point in the movie, because she's like, oh, I killed my kids, but then God gave me a do-over. So believe in God extra and you'll be fine. And then it turns out her own beliefs have been like so shaken. She could not listen to anybody else at any point, and it like isolated her from them and it isolated them from each other. And then at the end, when she's able to say, we are all equal people in this world, at least in this capacity. Maybe I'm still the boss and you still have to do all my chores. But other than that, actually, I am still the boss, but
I came away thinking movies about like, how do we deal with uncertainty? But then at the end, it seems like she's comfortable with the fact that we don't know anything, but we're here together. But then when they all chant, this house is ours, I don't know. Then I was like, I don't know if they really learned any lessons, because I think they've found a new belief.
That's why we need the Lydia Speak sequel, where we continue to get the growth for these characters. Yeah. One that I thought was interesting from your email of talking points was talking about like the use of light in this movie. I do think there's like a very big metaphorical overarching, like, she doesn't want the truth to come into the light, so the curtains must stay closed kind of thing. Our podcast is called Spooky Tuesday because during the pandemic, we would watch scary movies on Tuesday nights for literally anything to do. And one of the movies we watched was called Marrowbone with Anya Taylor-Joy and Mia Goth. And that was like a big touch point for me watching this movie. It's not the same kind of thing, but it has like similar, like there's a secret and something's going on and there's a mystery to be unraveled. And that does interesting things with like light and mirrors in ways that when I was watching it, somebody was like, this makes me think of Skeleton Key.
Skeleton Key. I forgot about that movie.
That movie has me in a chokehold. I think about that movie all the time.
But yeah, I mean, the use of light and mirrors and such was interesting in this movie. There was one shot with the mirror where she's talking to Charles in the bedroom, and like you can see him for 1 second in the mirror, but then it's positioned in such a way that you only see the empty bed. I thought that was an interesting shot.
Totally. I was wondering about that too. I was like, is he not there?
Yeah, I like went back to check to be like, can you see him in the mirror? You can for 1 sec.
Well, there was another mirror scene when she like finally thinks people are in the house, and her daughter's like, they're in that room.
She walks into a room and there's like sheets all over these items as a way to like preserve
Which is how
them.
she's been describing ghosts the whole time, is they're under the white sheets.
And she runs in, she's pulling all the sheets off everything, and there's like a Mary statue.
So they have to
off
have
the last
chains.
thing, and it's a big mirror, and she looks at herself in the mirror, and it's like a very early clue.
That she was the ghost under the sheet all along.
For her, it was a big clue that everything's fine. Just press it even more.
Actually, the only person that's here is me.
I look fabulous.
I am affirmed in myself.
Yeah, that scene was incredible too, because she just like abruptly walks the room and then she kind of realizes like this that she's hearing it. She thinks that something could be under the sheets, and she kind of slowly pulls the first one off, but then she starts like frantically, kind of seems to be going mad almost, escalating. Yeah. Until she like finally pulls off the sheet with a mirror on it. And then she sees the door in the background starting to close.
And she runs out, and then the daughter's like, they're down there, they're up there, they're behind us.
Because they were in that room, maybe setting shit up. They've just moved in, and then all of a sudden the sheets are being pulled off of everything, and they're all like, ah! They run to their own bedrooms to hide.
Do you have any idea what this might be?
Oh, it is a photograph album, ma'am.
No, but look, they're all asleep.
They're not asleep, ma'am. They're dead.
That's an important part of the movie because I'm sure
It
like
is.
some people don't know about the dead people pictures.
I love dead people pictures.
It was so expensive to take photos. So during that time, the only time that they would like save up enough money to take a picture of someone ever is when they fucking died. So they're like, at least there's an image of them.
Also, too, the exposure was so long and you couldn't move. And so if you were like alive, you'd probably move and mess up the photo. And so they were like, oh, you're dead. You're not moving. It's fine.
Like, I'm sure that was probably like a shocking reveal for some people watching the film, but I was like, picked it up and I was like, oh, it's an album of pictures of
I
dead
know exactly
people.
what this is.
I know exactly what this is.
I think that's a brilliant scene too, because Grace is flipping through this book of what could presumably look like people sleeping, but who are actually dead. She doesn't realize that when Mrs. Mills comes in, and Nicole's like, I found this album with people sleeping in it. You can see Mrs. Mills like look at Grace really. She's like, yeah, another.
Like this fucking dumb bitch.
Grace is like, why would people do this? And she's like, well, grief over the death of a loved one can lead people to do the strangest things.
And then she looked at the camera and winked.
Fred says, that's actually related to the twist I was talking about the last time I broke the fourth wall.
An extra layer to this that I forgot about until I watched this again is she adds that the reason they take a picture of these dead people is because some people believe that by taking a photo capture their spirit.
People say it comes from Native American folklore. I guess I don't know if that's true. But they say like, oh, they don't want to have the picture taken because they think it steals a piece of your soul. And so it'll have that like, actually it's preserving your soul after the fact. That's like kind of a beautiful twist on that, but I thought it was interesting.
Unfortunately for me, I do think the way that the picture played into the twist was cheesy to me, unfortunately. I wish it could have just been the reveal with the headstones because I thought that was a really effective visual. I get that they had to bring it back, but it was just kind of funny when she like pulls, she's like, what is this photo? And they're all just like,
and they're all just like, well,
they're all just like dead. And I'm like, okay.
They needed to give Grace her own moment of that because she's not outside with the kids to see the gravestone. So they need something to like shock her into it. I wonder if there's a more graceful way to have done that.
So this movie's set in Jersey and it has a very like British/Irish feeling to it. But I think it was actually filmed in Spain. I like was watching some clips of Nicole Kidman doing like press for it. And she was just talking about how busy she was shooting this movie. She didn't really have much time to explore Spain, but then like on Saturday she'd have like a free night to go out and like dine in Spain. It's just like, it's so funny to hear like a celebrity like Nicole Kidman just speak of things like as like, oh, I didn't have much time because I was working so much to really like enjoy life. It just blows my mind. It's like, you're Nicole Kidman and you should be able to do whatever you want.
Right. Well, contextualizing Nicole Kidman's life at this time, she was also going through a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Because when she first got involved with this movie, she was still married to Tom Cruise and he was a producer. And then by the time the movie came out, they had finalized their divorce.
And she did those pictures
and
where she was like, yeah, bitch.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The most incredible pictures ever.
She's like, finally I can go out and explore Spain before I had to be locked in a hotel room with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, because I'm really curious about that timeline too, because on these like press clips of Nicole Kidman talking about the others, she's at like some red carpet event and she gets interviewed and then Tom Cruise pops up and he's talking about the movie. And this must have been before they were divorced.
They got divorced on August 8th, 2001. So when did this movie come out?
September 7th, 2001.
A couple days right before 9/11.
That's wild. I can't help but think back to, I mean, we talked about The Sixth Sense. We haven't talked too much about M. Night Shyamalan as a filmmaker himself, the director of Sixth Sense, but he I can't remember if it was really the themes of The Sixth Sense, but I know his like later movies, especially Signs.
My favorite movie.
A lot of his movies seem to almost say like
Believe.
Yeah. Did you say Signs is your favorite movie?
Yeah.
We love Signs.
We love Signs.
You guys are big Shyamalan heads. That's what I know
We're big
about
Shyamalans, yeah.
I'm a big Shyamalan head as well.
Next movie, we can all go together.
Oh yeah, baby, I'm so down.
So much M. Night, like a lot of his movies, faith is kind of the answer. Like your faith and beliefs are like really important.
you. Renewing your sense of faith.
I mean, you could kind of see the others as kind of like an argument against that, or is asking like a deeper question. It's like, what if your faith or like what you believe in isn't necessarily what you believe in? That gets turned upside down. Like, how do you deal with that?
I think you could make an argument that they are actually more on this same page than that. And it's about finding your own internal sense of belief rather than like a doctrine handed to you on questioning, because that is so much of Signs is like he turns away from it and finds his way back. I will say I did see on IMDb trivia that the writer, director, orchestrator of the score for this movie was Catholic and is now agnostic. So like arguably a lot of that is his addressing his own changing faith, being allowed to question it. So much of that is this movie of the kids being like, I don't believe X, Y. He didn't make it in 7 days, which again kind of could go to the timeline of the film too.
Holy Spirit, activate. Holy Spirit, activate.
Holy Spirit, activate.
I saw on Wikipedia he's actually now an atheist. He was agnostic.
He said, actually, I went even further away.
I feel like this movie like brings up that question, but it like brings it up at the end. So you don't get any resolution. So it leaves you with that question. And that's what you're left with. And that's why you feel the way you do at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Because like it feels unresolved. There's no answer to the question. You don't feel good at the end of this. You feel sad.
In the beginning of the movie, in many ways, she's more religious than she's ever been because, you know, she did kill her children, but then she went, oh my God, my children are still alive in the other room. I'm still alive. God gave me a second chance is what she said. So she's like, my belief in God has been more affirmed than ever because even though I made a mistake, he's rewarded me by giving me this opportunity to be better. And then actually, that wasn't true.
I'm not religious, but I'm just like imagining a religious person watching this and being like, fuck. Because like at the end, that's the other part that's horrifying about the end. They're like, 1, I killed my children. 2, I'm dead. 3,
my deeply held religious beliefs
are all false.
It's like everything that has been the backbone of this entire movie is gone. That's out the window. She's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where we are. That was like really shaking to me.
I guess another level to it also is Alice and I were raised Catholic.
Oh.
And I do wonder if I saw this at home. So it was like 2002 was probably when I saw it. And I was like 12 years old at that time and like still very much like in Catholic school, Catholic faith. And so kind of reflecting back on this today, it's probably like another level that I haven't actually considers. It probably made me question my faith or make me realize that maybe like all the answers don't come from religion itself.
If you slept with the lights on, you clearly didn't have full faith in God to protect you from whatever may come.
I kind of remember now asking my mom maybe about limbo because of this movie. And maybe that's where I learned.
And then your mom's like, that's it. We're shutting all the blinds and locking the doors. Alejandro, him being raised Catholic, and then him also, I don't think he had come out as gay yet by the time of this movie. For him to also like not only be questioning his faith, but like his sexuality too, I think is like a really interesting like layer onto this movie too. It's like the things that you believe in and then also the things that you like kind of like bury and suppress.
What truth is about myself do I have to not acknowledge to fit in with the view of the world I've been given?
I like that perspective on it, Joe, because when I Googled him and realized he was gay, and then I'm like, this movie called The Others, and there's a lot of like othering.
Being othered, yeah.
Clearly it was informing the movie, but it's not in a direct one-to-one kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see an argument for someone who's like, I'm questioning my faith because I'm not allowed to exist within it, or like, I feel like this is an immutable truth about myself, and so if I can't change and adapt to fit these standards, like, what else is going on, and how do I put somebody else in that situation where they are questioning or need to expand their worldview or realize the things that they've been taught are not the only way to live.
Big questions for the director to be asking and big things to think about at 12 years old watching this movie.
Yeah, babe, I'm so sorry.
But that is what's so interesting to me about the end, because like it is very grim in the sense that you're like, well, they've been dead this whole time and this mom murdered her children. But also they're like, I can dance in the sunlight now. Like they have this freedom now that they didn't have before, and they have this honesty and intimacy with each other that they didn't have before. And so like in a way it is almost sort of hopeful to be like released from these rules that restrict your growth or your movement or your ability to connect with other people in the world. So
absolutely,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I'd say this movie definitely, it's a sad ending, but I would say there's like a spark of hope.
Yeah.
Give them a couple days to realize that they're dead.
Other people will come, but like you're not even gonna know they're here sometimes.
But this
it's
house
kind of no big
is
deal.
ours. I heard they're gonna remake this movie.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
in 2020, they
What?
said. But what if they did it from the perspective
of Victor and his family?
Yes.
What if they did Lydia Speaks?
Bring back the Lydia cut. Yeah.
We know there's more Lydia footage. Where is it?
On the second DVD that Monica owns,
Yes.
refuses to watch.
Sydney, when you haunt people in the future, will you want fog or no fog?
Oh, has to have fog.
Okay.
I want to be as dramatic as humanly possible.
You'll have a fog machine.
Yes. Bury me with a fog machine.
I'm going to put just like another gallon of the juice in there.
I think you can just produce it.
Ooh.
Just in case, though, let's make sure she's prepared.
Spooky Tuesday. Chelsea, Monica, Sydney, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Can you quickly plug like your YouTube, Instagram, anything you want to say or share on the podcast for our listeners to know?
So we are Spooky Tuesday, a horror movie podcast. Our episodes come out shockingly on Tuesdays. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. On YouTube, we are at Spooky_Tuesday, and we're also at Spooky_Tuesday on pretty much everything that you could ever want. And you can also check out our website. We're spookytuesdaypod.com.
Well, people listening, please visit Spooky Tuesday, follow, like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do on the platforms. This is Queer Cinema Catchup. I'm Joe.
And I'm Allison.
And this is the podcast we talk about movies we talk about
movies, TV shows, miscellaneous items.
That's what we do.
Through a queer lens.
Thank you for listening to our episode on The Others.
Yes.
And we will talk to you next week.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.